For nearly 3 centuries, humanity had stood among the greatest civilizations in the galaxy. The Orion Council Chamber, built inside the hollow core of a dead moon, had seen empires rise and collapse, treaties signed in blood, and entire species erased from history. Yet through every crisis, humanity had remained constant. Reliable, patient, necessary. Humans repaired broken trade routes during the Vex Plague. They defended outer colonies when pirate fleets overwhelmed council patrols. They shared agricultural technology freely with starving systems. Even species that privately disliked humans admitted one truth: the galaxy functioned better with them in it. But gratitude faded quickly in politics, especially when fear became more useful. The crisis began after the Carthane incident. A border world burned in blue fire after an experimental human reactor detonated during a pirate assault. Millions died. The council media networks replayed the footage endlessly, towering storms of plasma swallowing cities, while commentators questioned whether humanity had become too dangerous to remain unchecked. Nobody mentioned that humans had sacrificed the station to stop the pirates from reaching inhabited worlds. Nobody mentioned the evacuation ships. Nobody mentioned the volunteers who stayed behind. Fear did not need truth, only repetition. Inside the Grand Council chamber, thousands of floating holographic sigils glowed above the representatives of hundreds of species. The atmosphere smelled faintly of metal and ozone. Every seat was occupied. At the center platform stood Counselor Elena Merrick, the human representative. Calm, expressionless, alone. "The emergency resolution is now active," announced the speaker, a towering silver-skinned Valoran whose mechanical voice echoed across the chamber. "Final vote authorization will begin." Massive glyphs appeared overhead. Restriction of human expansion authority. Suspension of military command access. Transfer of outer colony security to council control. It was not officially an expulsion. That would have caused outrage across too many systems. Instead, it was humiliation wrapped in legal language. One by one, the species voted. Blue lights, gold lights, white lights. Approval after approval illuminated the chamber like cold stars. Some delegates refused to look at Elena. Others looked directly at her with satisfaction. The final tally appeared overhead. Resolution passed. For a long moment, silence consumed the chamber. Then the speaker turned toward the human representative. "Humanity will comply with all council directives effective immediately." Every camera focused on Elena Merrick. Across the galaxy, trillions watched the moment live. Many expected anger, threats, warnings. Instead, Elena slowly stood. Her voice was quiet enough that the chamber itself amplified it. "Understood." The simplicity of the answer unsettled the room. The speaker hesitated. "You accept the ruling?" Elena looked across the chamber, at allies who stayed silent, at politicians hiding behind procedure, at civilizations humanity had once defended. Then she nodded once. Yes. No argument. No protest. No negotiation. The silence became uncomfortable. Finally, the speaker cleared his throat. "Then this session is concluded." But before the chamber lights dimmed, Elena spoke again. "Humanity will withdraw peacefully from all council operations." Murmurs spread instantly. Several delegates straightened in confusion. The speaker frowned. "Withdraw. We will remove our fleets, personnel, infrastructure support, trade stabilization systems, and diplomatic staff over the next 30 standard cycles." A ripple of unease moved through the chamber. The council depended on human logistics more than most citizens realized. Elena continued calmly. "You will, of course, retain full authority over the territories you wish to control." Now the room felt colder. The speaker's mechanical composure cracked slightly. "Counselor Merrick, there is no need for dramatics." At that, Elena almost smiled. Dramatics? She looked around the chamber one final time. For 300 years, humanity believed this council represented unity. Today, we learned it only represents convenience. No one answered. "Do not worry," she said softly. "Humanity leaves quietly. Then she deactivated her sigil and walked out of the chamber alone. Council media channels declared the vote a historic victory for collective security. Analysts praised the assembly for finally placing limits on humanity's growing influence. Across wealthy core worlds, politicians congratulated one another while commentators mocked human warnings as emotional exaggeration. "They need the council more than we need them," one senator famously declared during a live broadcast. The clip spread everywhere. For a few days, it even seemed true. Human fleets began withdrawing exactly as promised. No threats, no sabotage, no retaliation. Massive carrier groups silently left council-controlled sectors, their engines glowing like fading stars as they disappeared into deep space. Human diplomats closed embassies with formal courtesy. Military advisors boarded transports without resistance. Research stations transferred authority and powered down. Every departure followed legal procedure perfectly. That frightened some people more than anger would have. Still, most of the galaxy ignored the growing unease, until the shipping lanes started failing. The Orion Assembly had always believed the Council managed interstellar commerce. Officially, it did. In reality, humans maintained most of the navigation infrastructure behind the scenes. Thousands of ancient jump beacons scattered across unstable sectors required constant adjustment to prevent catastrophic drift. Human engineers had handled the work for generations because few other species possessed the patience for it. 3 weeks after the withdrawal began, Beacon Chain 14 collapsed near the Perseus Corridor. 17 cargo vessels vanished during transit. Trade losses reached billions within hours. The Council issued emergency reassurances. Then Chain 9 failed. Then Chain 22. Entire shipping routes became unusable almost overnight. Panic spread quietly at first. Factories on industrial worlds stopped receiving raw materials. Agricultural colonies couldn't export food fast enough. Medical shipments disappeared in stranded convoys trapped between unstable gates. And every day more human personnel left. Always polite, always silent. On the border world of Eltaris, Governor Venn watched from a command balcony as the final human maintenance crews prepared to depart the orbital station. "You're seriously leaving?" he asked the lead engineer. The human woman checked a data screen without looking up. "Orders from Earth. But this station regulates the entire sector grid. We know. You can't just abandon it." For the first time, the engineer looked at him. There was no anger in her eyes. Only exhaustion. "We maintained it free of charge for 91 years, she said quietly. "Your council voted to assume responsibility." Governor Venn opened his mouth, then closed it again. Because technically, she was right. Hours later, the human ships departed. 3 days after that, Eltaris suffered its first orbital blackout in 80 years. It would not be the last. Inside the Grand Council chamber, emergency meetings replaced celebration ceremonies. Delegates argued endlessly while economic projections worsened by the hour. "They're destabilizing the assembly deliberately," one representative shouted. Another slammed his claws against the table. "Then order them back. They are outside council jurisdiction now. Sanction them for refusing voluntary labor?" Silence followed. That realization spread slowly through the chamber like poison. Humanity had not attacked anyone. They had simply stopped carrying the galaxy on their backs. Reports flooded in daily. Outer colonies requesting aid. Defense grids failing maintenance checks. Medical shortages. Navigation collapse. Pirate activity rising across abandoned patrol sectors. Then came the most disturbing discovery. Human fleets were not regrouping for war. They were going home. Long-range probes observed enormous civilian convoys traveling toward soul space. Freighters, colony ships, science vessels, industrial platforms. Humanity wasn't preparing revenge. They were disconnecting. And for the first time in centuries, the Orion Council began to understand how deeply the galaxy depended on a species it had spent decades underestimating. But pride still ruled the assembly. Most delegates believed the crisis was temporary. An inconvenience. A bluff. Surely humans would return once economic pressure affected them too. After all, No civilization would willingly abandon the galaxy it helped build, right? Far beyond Council territory, hidden behind the defense satellites of the Sol system, humanity answered that question in silence. By closing the gates behind them, 30 days after humanity's withdrawal, the galaxy stopped feeling connected. The change was difficult to explain at first. Nothing dramatic happened immediately. No worlds exploded. No invasions swept across the core systems. The stars themselves still burned peacefully in the dark. But something invisible had vanished. Movement, rhythm, confidence. For centuries, human systems had operated quietly beneath the surface of galactic civilization like the hidden machinery of a great engine. Most species never noticed it because humans rarely demanded recognition. Now the engine was gone, and the galaxy was beginning to stall. Inside the Council Emergency Command Center, hundreds of analysts worked without rest beneath enormous holographic displays filled with blinking warnings. Trade delays, colony unrest, communication outages, security failures. Every hour, the list grew longer. Council Speaker the Rex stood motionless near the central projection table while advisors argued around him. The outer sectors require immediate fleet deployment. We don't have enough operational carriers. Then redirect reserves from the core. And leave the capital exposed? Another official stepped forward nervously. Speaker, piracy incidents have increased by 400% since the human patrol withdrawal. The Rex clenched his jaw. Of course they had. Pirates feared human fleets more than council law. Humans were unpredictable in battle. Ruthless when civilians were threatened. Entire criminal organizations had disappeared after provoking human response forces. Now the patrol lanes stood empty, and predators always noticed weakness. A new alert flashed red across the chamber. Agricultural collapse warning. Vega colonies. Another followed seconds later. Medical shortage. Nerith system. Then another. Civil unrest. 3 outer rim worlds. The council had expected inconvenience. Instead, civilization itself was beginning to fray. Meanwhile, humanity said nothing. No broadcasts emerged from Sol space. No diplomatic messages arrived. No demands were made. That silence became unbearable. On countless worlds, ordinary citizens began asking dangerous questions. Who maintained the long-range communication relays? Humans. Who stabilized unstable border economies after wars? Humans. Who transported emergency supplies during disasters? Humans. Who repaired ancient infrastructure nobody else understood anymore? Humans. The answers spread faster than official propaganda. For the first time in generations, people realized the Orion Assembly had confused authority with usefulness. And the two were not the same thing. On the industrial moon of Karis Prime, factory worker Denel watched another production line shut down due to missing shipments. The lights dimmed overhead as emergency power restrictions activated. "This is the 4th shutdown this week," his supervisor muttered. Denel stared at the dark machinery. "Why can't the council fix it?" No one answered. Because everyone already knew. The council governed the galaxy. But humanity had maintained it. Far away, beyond the fortified borders of Sol, Earth remained strangely calm. Massive orbital shipyards worked continuously above the planet, surrounding the blue world in rivers of moving steel and light. Millions of human vessels arrived daily from former council territories. Not refugees, not survivors, citizens returning home. Families stepped off transport ships carrying little more than bags and silence. Soldiers removed their insignia. Diplomats disappeared into civilian life. Engineers resumed work inside enormous construction complexes, hidden beneath Earth's oceans and mountains. Humanity moved with quiet efficiency, as if this possibility had been prepared for long ago. Inside one classified chamber beneath Geneva, Counselor Elena Merrick stood before a holographic star map while military and civilian leaders observed reports from collapsing sectors. "The assembly is destabilizing faster than projected," one analyst said. Another looked uneasy. "Should we intervene?" Elena remained silent for several moments. Then she shook her head. "They made their decision. Billions may suffer. Yes. The room fell quiet. Finally, an older admiral spoke carefully. And if the council asks for assistance? Elena looked toward the glowing map of former human territories now descending into chaos. They will. Her expression hardened slightly. But first, they must understand what they destroyed. The first planetary distress signal arrived from the outer rim 42 days after humanity's departure. Then another, and another. Within a week, entire sectors were burning. Pirate clans that had hidden for decades suddenly emerged from deep space like starving animals. Smugglers became warlords overnight. Old territorial conflicts reignited between species the humans had once forced into uneasy peace. Without human patrol fleets, the frontier collapsed faster than anyone imagined possible. The Orion Council responded immediately, or at least it tried to. 3 council battle groups were deployed toward the Ravern corridor after colonies reported mass raids on civilian transports. Official broadcasts promised swift justice and the restoration of order. The fleets never reached their destination. Halfway through transit, navigation systems failed inside an unstable jump corridor previously maintained by human beacon technicians. 2 cruisers collided during emergence. Another vanished entirely. The surviving ships retreated in chaos. Across the galaxy, citizens watched the disaster unfold live. For the first time in centuries, the Council looked weak. And weakness invited more violence. On the colony world of Theron, emergency sirens echoed through crowded streets, while civilians rushed toward underground shelters. Above the atmosphere, pirate destroyers descended through clouds of fire. Governor Sell hurried through the command center, panic visible across his face. "Where are the defense fleets?" he demanded. An officer avoided eye contact. "Nearest council reinforcements are 6 days away." 6 days. The old human rapid response network no longer exists. The room went silent. Everyone remembered the network. Human carriers once responded to distress calls within hours, sometimes minutes. Entire rescue systems had operated across the frontier without most citizens ever noticing. Now those systems were gone, and worlds like Theron stood alone. A young communications officer suddenly looked up from her console. "There's another incoming transmission. Council command?" She hesitated. "No, civilian frequency." The screen flickered. An old human emergency beacon appeared briefly before stabilizing into a pre-recorded message. "If you are receiving this signal, human defense support is no longer active in your region. Contact local authorities. May your people survive what comes next." The transmission ended. No threats, no mockery, just a warning. Governor Sell felt cold. Elsewhere, inside the Grand Council chamber, the situation had deteriorated into open accusation. "You told us humanity was replaceable," one delegate shouted. Another slammed data tablets onto the central table. 32 colonies lost contact this week alone. "We were never informed humans controlled this much infrastructure." Speaker the Rex rose from his platform, fury breaking through his usual mechanical calm. "Because humanity never reported the full extent of their operations." A silence followed that statement. Then an elderly delegate spoke quietly. "Or perhaps, we never cared enough to ask." No one answered him. That truth hung heavily over the chamber. For centuries, humans had volunteered for difficult assignments no one else wanted. Dangerous trade routes, border patrols, infrastructure repair, disaster response. The Assembly had accepted the benefits without considering the cost. Now the bill had arrived, and it was catastrophic. Meanwhile, hidden deep inside Sol territory, humanity observed everything. Massive tactical displays tracked collapsing sectors across the galaxy while military analysts monitored refugee movements and piracy expansion. Admiral Vera Okonkwo stood beside Elena Merrick inside the Lunar Defense Command Center. "The Council has officially requested negotiations," the Admiral said. Elena barely reacted. "Directly?" "Yes. Terms?" "They're asking for humanitarian assistance." A bitter smile touched the Admiral's face. "Interesting how quickly sanctions become requests." Elena remained focused on the star map. Beyond Sol's borders, dozens of worlds already burned red with conflict warnings. How bad? She asked. Worse than projected, the Admiral admitted quietly. And we've confirmed something else. A new hologram appeared above the table. Ancient star systems, hidden coordinates, defense stations buried in deep space. Elena's eyes narrowed slightly. The Vault Network, she said. The Admiral nodded. For 200 years, humanity secretly maintained the containment perimeter. A heavy silence filled the room, because beyond those forgotten sectors slept threats far older and more dangerous than pirates. Threats the Orion Council never even knew existed. And now, the perimeter was beginning to fail. The Council delegation arrived at Earth under heavy escort. Not because humanity threatened them, because humanity no longer trusted them. 3 alien diplomatic vessels descended slowly through Earth's atmosphere while thousands of defense satellites tracked every movement. The visitors stared silently through their viewports as oceans of lights spread across the night side of the planet below. Earth looked peaceful. Too peaceful. No riots. No economic collapse. No panic. If anything, humanity appeared stronger since leaving the assembly. That realization unsettled the delegation before negotiations even began. Speaker the Rex stepped onto the landing platform beneath the massive dome of the Geneva diplomatic complex. Cold rain fell across polished black stone, while human security forces waited in complete silence. No ceremonial music greeted them. No media drones hovered nearby. Humanity had no interest in spectacle anymore. Elena Merrick stood waiting near the entrance. She wore simple dark clothing instead of official council robes. The Rex noticed that immediately. You no longer represent the assembly, he said carefully. Elena met his gaze calmly. No, she replied. I represent Earth. The words carried more weight than he expected. Inside the diplomatic chamber, the delegation quickly abandoned formalities. The frontier is collapsing, one delegate admitted. Entire colonies are under attack. Another leaned forward desperately. We need humanitarian support. Elena listened without interruption. Then she asked a single question. Why? Confused silence followed. Speaker the Rex frowned. Billions of civilians are at risk. And when humanity warned the Council about destabilizing the frontier, no one answered. You stripped our authority, Elena continued quietly. You dismantled our patrol systems. You seized our territories. Why should humanity now accept responsibility for your decisions? A younger delegate spoke sharply. Because innocent lives are involved. For the first time, emotion flashed across Elena's face. Yes, she said softly. Now you understand. The room fell silent again. Then Admiral Vera Okonkwo entered carrying a small data crystal. Before further negotiations, she said, there is information your council was never cleared to access. The chamber lights dimmed. A holographic map of the galaxy appeared overhead. At first, the delegates saw only familiar systems. Then the image expanded outward. Far beyond mapped space, thousands of hidden markers illuminated the darkness. Speaker the Rex stared upward. What is this? The perimeter, Admiral Okonkwo answered. Another gesture transformed the display again. Ancient defense stations emerged along the galactic edge, massive structures buried inside dead systems, hidden nebulae, and collapsed stars. Automated fortresses larger than moons floated silently in forgotten regions of space. The delegates looked horrified. These installations, one whispered. Who built them? Some were built by humanity, the Admiral said. Her expression darkened. Most were not. Silence spread through the chamber. Elena stepped forward. 213 years ago, human deep space explorers encountered something beyond the Perseus expanse. The hologram shifted. A distorted signal appeared. Unknown symbols pulsed across the projection like living shadows. No civilization in the Council knew this existed, Elena continued, because humanity decided the galaxy wasn't ready. Speaker the Rex felt his throat tighten. Ready for what? Admiral Okonkwo answered. For them. The hologram changed again, and suddenly the chamber saw war. Entire star systems burning, ancient fleets blackening space, planets cracked open like glass, civilizations erased. The footage was old, very old, but the destruction felt horrifyingly real. These are archival recordings recovered from extinct species outside galactic territory, the Admiral explained. Every civilization encountered the same enemy. A delegate whispered shakily, "What enemy?" Elena looked directly at him. "We don't know their name." The room became deathly still. "We only know one thing," she said. "They come when civilizations become loud enough to notice." The hologram zoomed toward the hidden defense perimeter surrounding the galaxy like a massive wall in darkness. For centuries, Elena continued, humanity maintained the containment network silently while the Council argued politics. Speaker the Rex stared upward in disbelief. "You protected the galaxy without telling us?" "No," Elena corrected softly. "We protected humanity." That answer frightened them even more. Then alarms suddenly erupted across the chamber. A human officer rushed inside. "Emergency transmission from Perimeter Station Kappa 9. Admiral Okonkwo's expression hardened instantly. "Status." The officer swallowed. "One of the outer beacons just went dark." Every human in the room went silent, because they all understood what that meant. Something had touched the perimeter, and for the first time in centuries, something had answered back. The room remained frozen for several seconds after the officer delivered the report. One beacon gone dark. To the Council delegation, it sounded like a technical malfunction. To humanity, it sounded like the beginning of extinction. Admiral Vera Okonkwo moved first. "All perimeter commands to alert status," she ordered sharply. "Activate deep space reconnaissance immediately." Human officers rushed from the chamber. Around the alien delegates, holographic displays awakened across the walls, flooding the room with tactical data moving too quickly for most species to follow. Speaker the Rex stared at the projections. Hundreds of hidden defense platforms were activating simultaneously along the galactic edge. Massive fleets emerged from concealed dockyards buried inside moons, asteroids, and artificial worlds. The delegation watched in disbelief. Humanity had not withdrawn weakly from the galaxy. Humanity had withdrawn behind a fortress, and that fortress had been preparing for war. One delegate looked horrified. "How many ships does Earth actually possess?" No one answered him directly, but the tactical map did. Countless blue signals illuminated soul space and surrounding sectors like stars igniting in darkness. Carrier groups larger than entire Council navies began accelerating toward the outer perimeter. Speaker the Rex spoke quietly. "All this time, you were hiding military forces of this scale?" Elena Merrick never looked away from the holographic map. "All this time," she replied. "We were hiding fear." The words chilled the chamber. A transmission suddenly appeared above the central table. Static. Distortion. Then an image formed from deep space surveillance drones. At first, the delegates saw only darkness between stars. Then something moved. The object was enormous. Not a ship. Not a station. Something alive. Its surface twisted unnaturally across impossible angles, as though reality itself bent around it. Fragments of black metallic structures floated nearby like shattered bones. Several delegates recoiled instinctively. "What is that?" someone whispered. The drone feed distorted violently. Then the signal ended. No explosion. No warning. Just silence. Admiral Okonkwo's expression hardened further. "Lost another probe." A younger alien diplomat looked pale. "That thing destroyed it?" "No," the Admiral answered quietly. "It noticed it." Those words hit harder than any threat. Across Earth, emergency systems activated for the first time in over a century. Civilian evacuation routes opened beneath major cities. Orbital defense grids powered online. Massive shipyards above the moon accelerated production around the clock. And still humanity remained disciplined. No panic spread, because humanity had always known this day might come. The council delegation finally understood the terrible truth. Humans never feared the Orion Assembly. Humans feared what waited outside the galaxy. Inside the command center, analysts processed incoming signals from the perimeter. Then one technician suddenly froze. "Admiral," Okonkwo turned immediately. "Report." The technician swallowed hard. "We're detecting transmissions from beyond the Perseus expanse. Can you identify the source?" "No, ma'am." "Content." The room fell silent as the technician hesitated. Then he activated the audio. A low sound echoed through the chamber. Not language, not static. Something between a machine signal and a living voice. A deep rhythmic pulse repeated endlessly beneath layers of distortion. Several alien delegates covered their ears instinctively. One collapsed to his knees. Speaker the Rex felt cold terror crawling beneath his skin. "What is it saying?" he whispered. A linguistics officer answered shakily. We think it's responding to us." The chamber went silent. Elena slowly looked toward the dark holographic edge of the galaxy. "For 2 centuries," she said quietly, "humanity kept the perimeter stable enough to avoid detection." Another pulse echoed through the room. Louder this time. Closer. Admiral Okonkwo turned toward the council delegation. "This is why humanity handled the dangerous sectors ourselves. This is why we controlled deep space traffic. This is why we limited expansion beyond the frontier." Speaker the Rex finally understood. The restrictions, the patrols, the secrecy, the sacrifices. Humanity had never been building an empire. Humanity had been building a wall. And the council had broken part of it. A final alert flashed blood red across every display in the chamber. Multiple perimeter breaches detected. Then another message appeared beneath it. Unknown vessels entering galactic space. No one spoke, because every being in the room realized the same horrifying possibility at the exact same moment. Humanity had left quietly, but something else had heard the silence. The first enemy vessel entered the galaxy above the dead system of Nerith 9. No alarms announced its arrival. No hyperspace flare marked its appearance. One moment space was empty. The next, reality itself seemed to tear open. Astronomical observatories across nearby sectors captured impossible images. Stars bending inward, light distorting unnaturally, entire sensor arrays failing as though physics had stopped functioning correctly. Then the vessel emerged. The dwarfed moons. Black structures twisted across its surface like living metal, constantly reshaping into forms no organic mind could fully process. Around it drifted fragments of destroyed ships fused together into grotesque masses. Within minutes, every civilian network in the galaxy carried the footage. Panic followed instantly. Worlds that once mocked humanity now begged for military protection. But humanity was already moving. Deep within soul space, hidden shipyards opened like mechanical flowers across the void. Thousands of human warships accelerated toward the outer sectors in perfect formation. The council delegation watched from Earth's Lunar Defense Command as fleet after fleet departed. Speaker the Rex stared silently at the tactical projections. "These numbers," he whispered. "This is larger than every council navy combined." Admiral Okonkwo answered without pride. "We hoped we would never need to use it." The first battle began 6 hours later. Human Fleet Sigma intercepted the enemy vessel near the remains of Nerith 9 while millions watched through emergency broadcasts. The Council expected traditional warfare, missiles, railguns, defensive formations. Instead, humanity unleashed something terrifying. Entire sections of space folded around the enemy as human gravity lances activated across the battlefield. Artificial singularities ripped through surrounding debris fields while carrier groups deployed autonomous drone swarms by the tens of thousands. The darkness answered immediately. The enemy vessel emitted a pulse. Half the drone swarm simply vanished. Not destroyed, gone. As though erased from existence. Even veteran human officers fell silent watching the tactical feed. Then the enemy moved. A single beam of black light crossed space. 3 human cruisers disappeared instantly. No debris remained. No explosion. Only empty space. The council delegation stared in horror. "This can't be fought," one diplomat whispered. But the humans kept advancing. Fleet Sigma reorganized within seconds. Damaged carriers repositioned while dreadnought-class vessels opened fire with stellar compression weapons powerful enough to crack planetary shields. For the first time, the enemy slowed. Human commanders noticed immediately. "It reacts to concentrated mass disruption," an analyst reported. Admiral Okonkwo nodded sharply. "Then hit it harder." The battle intensified. Across the galaxy, billions watched human fleets fight with terrifying discipline against an enemy no one else had even known existed. And slowly, painfully, the truth emerged. Humanity had fought these things before. Maybe not this exact enemy, but something close enough to prepare for. Speaker the Rex turned toward Elena Merrick. "How long have you known they would return?" Elena remained focused on the battlefield projection. "Since the first expedition discovered the ruins beyond Perseus." "That was over 2 centuries ago." "Yes." The alien delegates looked at her with growing disbelief. "You carried this burden alone for 200 years? Her expression hardened slightly. "We tried telling the council once." Silence filled the chamber. No one asked what happened next, because they already knew. The assembly had dismissed them, ignored them, mocked them, exactly as it always had. Suddenly, another emergency alert erupted across the command center. Additional enemy contacts emerging across 5 sectors. The holographic map expanded rapidly. More tears in space appeared along the galactic edge. Then more. Then dozens more. A terrible realization spread through the room. The first vessel had not been an invasion. It had been a scout. Admiral Okonkwo's voice became ice. "Mobilize all reserve fleets." A human officer hesitated. "Even the Atlas groups?" "Yes." The council delegation exchanged confused looks. Speaker the Rex frowned. "What are Atlas groups?" No one answered immediately. Then deep beneath the lunar surface, something ancient awakened. Massive power signatures erupted across hidden military vaults buried under the moon. One by one, colossal signals appeared on the tactical map. Not ships, titans, weapons humanity had concealed from the galaxy itself. Elena finally looked toward the horrified delegates. "This," she said quietly, "is the final reason humanity left the council." The moon trembled beneath them. Because if these weapons were ever needed, her eyes turned toward the growing darkness beyond the stars. Then civilization had already failed. The moon split open beneath Lunar Defense Command. Across enormous underground chambers hidden for centuries, ancient machines awakened one after another. Massive structures rose slowly toward the surface, surrounded by layers of armored plating and rivers of blue-white energy. The Atlas weapons. Even many human officers had never seen them activated before. Speaker the Rex watched the tactical display with disbelief as the first Atlas platform emerged into orbit above Earth. It was enormous, larger than cities. Its surface carried no visible weapons, no missile batteries, no fighter bays. Only rings. Thousands of rotating metallic rings surrounding a black center where even light seemed to bend unnaturally. One alien delegate whispered in horror, "What is that thing?" Elena Merrick answered quietly, "A last resort." Beyond the galaxy's edge, the enemy continued advancing. Entire frontier systems vanished from communications. Human fleets fought desperately across collapsing sectors while millions of civilians evacuated toward protected regions near Sol. But even humanity's hidden armada was losing ground. For every enemy vessel destroyed, more emerged from the darkness between stars. The galaxy was running out of time. Inside the command center, alarms echoed endlessly, while analysts processed casualty reports faster than they could speak them aloud. Then Fleet Sigma transmitted its final message. "We cannot hold the line." The signal ended seconds later. The tactical marker vanished. No one in the chamber spoke. Not even the humans. Admiral Okonkwo slowly closed her eyes before turning toward Elena. "The perimeter is gone." Elena nodded once. She had expected this moment for years. maybe her entire life. Speaker the Rex stepped forward shakily. "We were wrong," he admitted. The words sounded painfully small against the scale of the disaster surrounding them. "We judged humanity while benefiting from sacrifices we never understood." No one interrupted him. The old speaker looked toward the burning star map overhead. "We thought power meant authority." His voice weakened slightly. But humanity carried responsibility while the council carried pride. Elena studied him silently. Then another alert appeared. Enemy fleet approaching core systems. Estimated arrival. For hours. Panic spread through the alien delegation instantly. But the humans became calmer. Focused. Resolved. Admiral Okonkwo issued the final command. "Prepare Atlas activation." Across Earth and Luna, massive energy grids awakened. Entire oceans of power flowed toward the orbital weapons surrounding Sol. The black centers inside each Atlas ring began glowing faintly. Speaker the Rex stared upward nervously. What exactly do these weapons do? No one answered immediately. Finally, Elena spoke. "They collapse localized spacetime." The chamber went silent. Another delegate looked horrified. "You mean, they destroy fleets?" Elena's expression darkened. "No." She looked toward the tactical display where enemy signals continued spreading across the galaxy. "They destroy regions of existence." Several delegates recoiled in fear. "These weapons were never designed to win wars," Elena continued softly. "They were designed to deny the enemy access to the galaxy itself." Understanding hit the room like ice. The Atlas platforms were not defensive systems. They were extinction weapons. Humanity had prepared to sacrifice entire sectors if containment ever failed. And now that moment had arrived. Far beyond Sol, the darkness advanced through burning systems toward the core worlds. Then the Atlas platforms fired. No explosion followed. No light. Only silence. Across the galaxy, entire regions of space folded inward like paper collapsing into invisible fire. Enemy fleets vanished instantly alongside stars, planets, debris. Everything caught within the expanding gravitational fractures. Reality itself broke, and the advance stopped. Every surviving civilization watched the impossible unfold. Humanity was saving the galaxy by tearing pieces of it apart. Hours later, silence returned to the stars. The enemy signals were gone. The war was over. But so were dozens of systems. Inside the ruined council chamber on Earth, Speaker the Rex looked toward Elena one final time. "What happens now?" Elena stood quietly beneath the dim tactical lights. "The Orion assembly is finished," she said. No one argued, because they all knew it was true. The old galaxy had died the moment humanity walked away from it. Then Elena looked upward toward the wounded stars beyond Earth. "For centuries," she said softly, "humanity protected a civilization that never understood what survival truly cost." Her voice became colder. "We won't make that mistake again." Far above the planet, the Atlas platforms remained in silent orbit around Sol, guarding humanity, alone.